finally, Tyson Fury knocking out Deontay Wilder in round 11 of the third installment of this rivalry. The first fight, if you don't know, I'm assuming you do, but if you don't, the first fight was a draw that was not really a draw, but it was a draw. And then the second fight was a very dominant win for Fury. And this past summer, Fury was signed to fight Anthony Joshua. And it turns out that Wilder was contractually entitled to a third fight with Fury. Went to arbitration. He won. And, after a couple positive COVID tests and date changes and whatever, they finally made this fight happen. The last one was February of 2020, so it's over a year and a half. And if I'm being honest, the fight didn't play out exactly how I thought it would, but it wasn't that far off, This was a great fight. This was truly a great heavyweight fight. Both guys really fucking laid it on the line. They put each other down twice. Twice apiece, I should say, before Fury knocked Wilder out. What was really interesting to me was in the first round, I could see, and we all could see exactly what Wilder wanted to do. He wanted to put that jab on his body. He wanted to throw the right hand to the body. He wanted to just keep him busy with long, straight shots, and it was working. And he did that for about a minute and a half. And then all that shit went out the window. The minute Fury stopped getting a look and started to impose himself, the jab and the activity plan of Wilder's went right out the window. I'm telling you, it was like 90 seconds, and that shit ended. And then it became a war of attrition. It's not the cleanest I've ever seen Fury box, but it became a war of attrition, and that was a war that Fury was always going to win, to be honest with you. Like I said, I've said this before, there wasn't any way for Wilder to win this fight. We've already seen it play out. If they want to box from the outside, Fury's going to win that. If they want to bang on the inside, Fury's going to win that even more easily because Wilder has less room to get his power off. And credit to Wilder for making some improvements, but to be honest with you, he didn't stick with any of them. He didn't stick with that game plan for very long. It became, a more competitive version of the second fight very quickly. And he was able to drop Fury because he's the hardest puncher maybe of all time. So he's always got a chance with that. And that's usually what bails him out against other guys, That's usually that's what bailed him out 2 different times against Luis Ortiz, who's a much better boxer than he is. The power's just always been a bailout for him, and he can't put this guy away. And so because he can't put this guy away, he's always going to lose to him, And on top of that, Fury has just way more skills. I mean, Wilder's still just as limited of a boxer as he's ever been. I think I'm really seeing how a lot of times these fights are sensationalized in a sense where, it's the rebirth and we're getting the introduced to the new Deontay Wilder. Like the commentary has almost become like a sales pitch as you're going. And I even heard people say after the fight, oh, this is one of the greatest heavyweight fights. This is one of the greatest fights of all time. Like, take it easy. You know what I mean? Take it easy. It's a great fight. It's the best fight this year. But to say that it's one of the greatest fights of all time, any of my favorite fights, there isn't a fraction of the holding that would happen in this fight. There was a lot of holding in this fight. Again, it was a great fight. I'm not saying it wasn't. It was a great fight. You could even go so far as to say it was a classic. But to say it's one of the greatest fights of all time is I think we've all just been inside a little too long. You know what I mean? But regardless, it was a great fight, and it was a great performance for Fury. It sucks that it had to take so long for this fight to happen and for this to be really put to bed. But I feel like the only way this was ever going to get put to bed was if Wilder just got knocked out and got beat down. And he got knocked out and beat down in this fight. And I'm not really sure where he goes from here. I'm not sure, the aura of invincibility as far as his knockout power always bailing him out, that's gone now. But at the same time, I don't know if there's anybody at heavyweight other than Fury that can go a full 12 without getting caught by him. Not one time. And with Wilder, it only takes one time. It still only takes one time. So, do I think Joshua can walk that tightrope for 12 rounds? No way. Maybe the only other guy is Usyk. But I still, in my mind, even with his extreme limitations and vulnerabilities, I think Wilder can still knock just about anybody out, which is part of what makes Fury's performance so special, is that he walks when you're fighting Wilder, you're walking that tightrope. And Fury walked the tightrope, brilliantly, and took some really hard shots from Wilder, got buzzed, got put down, and it never stopped him. And he just kept coming forward, and he just had more juice and more tools that he could go to. The other thing is Wilder looked fucking crapped out after like the third round. He looked like he was like barely hanging on. So, to be honest, it just looked like Fury kept getting more warmed up and more like loose. He was getting looser and getting better as the fight went on. And Wilder, it was just, I think the difference, and that's partly just boxing talent, but the difference is like Wilder has to really get up to get to that level. He's got to really put everything into it. Whereas Fury, he kind of just, he's always there. It's like watching, I was an example of that. Not the same thing, but when I would watch the Pacquiao-Bradley fights, it was like Bradley was having to push himself within an inch of his life to stay at that level with Pacquiao, and Pacquiao is just there all the time. You know what I mean? And I think that's what this is. He's just got his number. He's got Wilder's number. He had Wilder's number. We didn't really have to see this fight to know that. But luckily for us, it turned out to be a great fight. And now what we really need to see is Fury and Usyk. And to get the undisputed heavyweight champ. I mean, that's like the only fight at heavyweight right now that really matters. You know what I mean? There's a lot of great fights to make at heavyweight, but that's the one that's for all the fucking marbles. And if we're not making that fight, what the fuck are we doing? You know what I mean?